Hey, do you find yourself just totally exhausted by the end of the day? Like you're reaching for maybe your third cup of coffee or the next caffeine drink or energy drink, and you're just feeling like you're just barely surviving the day. Or maybe it's not you, but it's one of your kiddos. They just feel like they're totally wired, but at the same time, they're exhausted, just maybe struggling to focus, and then crashing really hard at night. Um, know this first, you're not alone. What you're experiencing might actually be something that we call cortisol addiction. And so I want to talk more about what that is today, because what we're seeing is this pattern of families coming in and they're stuck in this cycle of chronic stress, and it's taking a serious toll on their health, right? From the things that they do to try and cope with that to the things that they aren't doing to try and cope with that. It's a really big deal. And so let's hop into it. So this video is for the parents and the kids who feel like they struggle with focus and hyperactivity, anxiety, mood swings, maybe families who have literally tried every single medication or therapy for their kids, or they've tried supplementations or crash diets, but haven't seen any sort of lasting results. Like maybe there was a little bit of change at first, and then things just kind of went back the other direction again, or it was fine at first and it worked for a while, but even though you're still doing those things, it's not actually helping anymore. This is also for specifically parents who feel like they're constantly drained. They're dependent on maybe caffeine or some sort of food or supplement to just kind of get through things. But ultimately, you're just stuck in fight or flight, just hanging on, trying to hold on to things for dear life as things seem to be crashing down on you or flying by. So cortisol addiction is really interesting. It's when the body ultimately starts to become dependent on the stress hormones to keep it functioning. So it's not a formal diagnosis, it's actually a real neurologic issue, and it goes much deeper than just like, oh, I'm stuck in fight or flight. There is hormonal imbalances that are occurring that are leading you to get stuck in that fight or flight mode, meaning it stems from sympathetic dominance to begin with, but then it keeps you stuck in that sympathetic dominance just to survive. And so what we find is that the root of the problem isn't necessarily the hormone itself. It's not the issues that you're struggling with in life. It's not the work. It's not the kids' meetings. It's not all those other things. It's the fact that the nervous system is dysregulated. And when the nervous system is dysregulated, then the body can't do what it needs to do appropriately. It can do things, but it can't do them well. From a statistics standpoint, ADHD statistics have actually doubled. The diagnoses have doubled over the past 20 years. Over 6 million children in the United States are actually now on some sort of stimulant medication, meaning they have to take something in order to either elevate their nervous system or calm their nervous system down. 3 to 4 adults actually report feeling so stressed that they can't even cope at least once per month, meaning it puts them into a state of such significant stress and depression that they can't even get out of the house, or it makes it so that they go about their life, but they're like a zombie, right? And you probably see that in yourself maybe as an adult and in your kids too, right? Many families that are dealing with these things unknowingly pass stress patterns back and forth from parent to child and from child to parent. It's this almost like this figure eight process where a kid is over here on this side of the figure eight doing well, but mom's over here struggling, right? And then suddenly they switch sides of that figure eight, and it just goes back and forth and back and forth. And so what we want to see is that if we can figure out where all this started, then we can figure out how to make it end. When we consider where this all started, one of the first places that we always look in anyone's history is birth trauma. Because birth is a stressful for mom and for baby, right? If you consider how much change and impact mom is going through during the birthing process, it's monumental, right? Not to mention once they go through that stressful, physical, strenuous process, all of a sudden they also have a newborn baby to take care of too. It's incredible, but it's also very significant in terms of how it impacts them. So parents and kids will come in and they'll report to us that there was a lot of birth interventions, things like maybe a C-section or forceps, maybe a vacuum extraction, or maybe they were induced into labor rather than going into labor naturally, which again, I'll be one of the first people to tell you there's pros and cons to each side of the coin, but sometimes moms get induced too early, so they have incredibly long labor, or they have really fast labor, and that's not good for mom or baby either. There's an accurate, specific amount of time that baby has to go through and mom needs to go through so that she doesn't get too much physical stress or emotional stress, and baby doesn't get too much physical or emotional stress. All of these can cause tension and misalignment in this upper neck region, in the brain stem region, right? This area is so impactful. And you think about anytime somebody hands you a newborn baby, right? You hand your baby off to maybe an uncle that's, you're not sure if they should be holding the baby, right? And the first thing you always tell them is support the neck, right? Support the head, because this area is so impacted by any sort of trauma. If we have trauma in this area, this leads to something that in the chiropractic world we call subluxation. And subluxation ultimately just leads to stress on something called the vagus nerve. You've heard of the vagus nerve, right? The vagus nerve is huge. It's one of the most important things, and it's a really highly talked about concept and thing in the world today. And it's not just a concept, it's an actual physical thing. That physical thing being a nerve that exits the brainstem and goes down and communicates to things like your heart and your lungs and your digestive system, all the way to your reproductive system. If there's stress stuck on the vagus nerve because of impact here, then that will affect baby not just at birth, but throughout the rest of their life, because that vagus nerve needs to be well intact and communicating well for all those critical functions to happen, right? For them to have regular heartbeats, for them to be able to breathe in and breathe out appropriately, for them to be able to digest their food, right? If those things don't get taken care of, if subluxation, stress on the vagus nerve doesn't get taken care of, then that leads to autonomic imbalance. An autonomic imbalance can lead to things like colic as an infant. It can lead to reflux or poor sleep, right? And if a baby stays there, a lot of times parents will be told, oh, they're just going to grow out of it. And ultimately what actually happens is they grow into something else, like potentially a kiddo that struggles with ADHD or anxiety and dysregulation later on in life. So we want to make sure that where this trauma starts, we can also get it taken care of as soon as possible. And if we don't, that's okay, right? Because sometimes we get adults that come into the office and it's the first time they've ever been to a chiropractor ever in their entire life, right? And so we just meet people where they're at. But if we want to turn that cortisol stress down and we want that to balance out, then we do have to take care of it, right? We do need to get you adjusted. So when we consider as kids, right, it's a little bit easier to see as kids what's going on. But when we consider the modern lifestyle that keeps us in stress mode, things like screens, this triggers cortisol in big ways, then maybe we turn too much to screens, or maybe we turn too much to sugar, right? Sugar actually spikes and creates crashes in blood sugar. So you eat something that's really sugary, your blood sugar spikes, and it stays up for a short while, but then ultimately will drop down again. And so then you are stuck with feeling more burnt out and stressed than you were before, because you had that spike that, ooh, that felt really good, but then it drops down. There's studies that show this. There's also just ultimate lack of rest. We just don't relax. We don't take time to just chill for a second, right? It's one of the biggest things that we need to be doing, but we just don't do it. So taking time in nature, right? Going on a hike. We live in Utah. Why wouldn't you go out on a hike every now and then, even if it's just on a simple path, right? The Jordan River Trail, not super up and down. You're just going on a walk outside. Moving in general, doing some yoga, right? Now's a great time to get outside. It really is. That can give you some really true downtime to just chill and relax and try to bring some balance to that cortisol system. Kids, they'll seek stimulation in different ways. It might be screens or sugar. For some kids, it might be just risky behavior, right? Boys are a little bit more obvious with this one, right? I have 3 boys. One of them's a baby, but 2 of them are a little bit older, and they're aggressive as heck, right? And my 2-year-old right now is in a phase where he needs a little bit more stimulation in order to be able to calm down. He needs to wrestle a little bit, right? He needs to play a little bit. But if that goes too far, right, and he ends up hurting somebody, right, then that's a problem. And so we have to have some of this to be able to chill and be able to feel better. Parents will mirror things that our kids are dealing with things like caffeine or that hustle culture, right? Just push yourself, go, 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 because that's what we do. Work hard, work harder. And there's none of that work hard, play harder sort of mentality, which there's a certain time where things need to get done, but there's also a certain amount of, hey, let's work hard, but also enjoy the fruits of our labor. I think a lot of times our kids act up because we take too much time on our phones, right? We get mad at our kids for not responding to us when our kids ask us a question, we're staring down at the phone, right? And we're not listening to them. And so then they get frustrated, or then they start to mirror our behavior because we're not paying attention to them because we're paying attention to this, right? I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for it, but if we push and use screens as much as we do, we dang well better be willing to say, hey, I'm going to pay attention to you when you ask me a question because I want you to pay attention to me when I ask you a question, right? They're just mirroring our behavior. And then a lot of times one of our favorite things to do at the end of the day, Mackenzie and I, is to sit down and watch a show together. But it depends on what you're watching, right? Because what you're watching can elevate your cortisol levels or it can calm things down. And everyone responds to different types of things and different types of shows, and that's okay. But ultimately, unintentionally, families are reinforcing each other's sympathetic dominance because we use what's available to us when really we should be paying more attention to those other things, right? The chill things. People will talk to me about saying like, hey, well, like I take Adderall or I take this medication or that medication for this issue. And they'll say either it works, but I feel like a zombie, or I take it and I don't feel anything at all. And so we find that it doesn't correct the nervous system imbalance. It just deepens the stress because we're putting a mask over a symptom, right? And so we want to make sure that that mask is not there at all, right? And so it doesn't mean we're going to take that away from you. I'm not a medical doctor. I can't do that. I won't do that. But sometimes we find that it doesn't correct that nervous system imbalance, and parents will rely on those things for their kids in hopes that it'll work. But again, it doesn't necessarily get rid of the issue. Parents will in turn kind of mirror this by relying on things like caffeine in the same way, just a different substance, same stress loop. So it's a short-term solution to a long-term neurological problem. And again, we don't want to have a mask over the issue. We actually want to take care of the issue. So chiropractic really looks at things in a root cause sort of way. We figure out where the stress has been stuck on your nervous system, whether it's at that early birth cycle, right? Or if it came upon later, we figure out where the root of the issue is. And then we use technology to figure out what's going on so that we know where to adjust, where the stress is stored, and then how to ultimately restore function to the nervous system and to your body. Each adjustment, what it does is has a parasympathetic effect or a vagal effect. It helps release stress and shift the body more into a rest and restore and relax mode. This helps kids become calmer. It helps them focus in more, helps them sleep a whole lot better. And when they do those things, when they eat, sleep, and poop well, I tell parents all the time, if I don't eat, sleep, and poop well, then I'm a grumpy person, right? And kids are no different. And that, when your kids do those things, then you start to feel better too. It helps you feel more grounded. It helps you feel more energized and organized and connected. So then you can also connect more with your kids too. Being able to give your kids the time and energy and effort that they deserve from you as a parent. Monumental. So what we do at Renegade Chiropractic is we help families break free from the cortisol addiction pathway, right? We do it naturally. We make adjustments. And if this resonates with you, even just a little bit, just send us a message. We'll listen, we'll answer any questions that you have and help you really figure out if this approach is the right approach for your family. You don't have to stay stuck in this cycle forever. Like, your kids and you can do well. It's just a matter of time and doing the right things in order to get you there. And we can get you there. Let us know how we can help.